while you are working with the company. That's the term.
Wow.
Yes. So
Okay.
after you leave your company, guess what?
You have no
No
insurance.
insurance. Because
Wow.
yes. So I explain it to them. It's a term policy. They always think term is 5 years, 20 years, 15 years. I tell them the term is while you're working with that company. So sure enough, I do talk to a lot of people, in their 60s, and now they've retired from their company, and now they're worried because they don't have life insurance. And of course, now they're in their 60s, they're thinking of life insurance. It's going to be very costly because when
Right.
we calculate premiums for life insurance, age makes a lot of
It's a
difference.
factor. A
Yes,
huge factor.
a huge factor.
Right.
And normally when you're in your 60s, your health is not as great compared when you're in your 20s or 30s.
That's right.
So a lot of people are really concerned about that. And when I tell them you have to talk to your HR personnel just to
Mhm.
find out what kind of policy do you have at work.
Right.
Is this something where it's just a term policy, or is it something where it would last you even after you leave the company?
Right. And usually there's a premium in some cases that
Right.
you're paying for that, a
Mm-hmm.
copay or something that you're
Yes.
paying for that with your company, and you should be
Mm-hmm.
using that money to have permanent,
Right. Mm-hmm.
insurance that you control, or even if it's term insurance that you have,
Mm-hmm.
it's for a term that you determine, not
Yes.
determined by your
Mm-hmm.
employer.
Mm-hmm. Because you cannot control that. You could leave work because you're retired, but what if, you
Laid
left work?
off.
Exactly.
People get laid
Mm-hmm.
off, people get terminated,
Mm-hmm.
people change jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and you think this policy is following you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not.
Right. And some companies, when you file for disability, because you're no longer working there, some companies actually stop your benefits.
Wow.
So your life insurance may be one of that benefit as well.
Wow. Yeah, this is great information.
So really best to talk to your HR personnel or an insurance professional just to see what kind of life insurance is available for you beyond your worksite benefit.
Right. I would, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I would almost prefer to have my insurance separate
Right.
from that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've always done that, had
Mm-hmm.
my insurance separate
Separate.
from that because, I like to be in control. So I want to know what I'm doing. And so I don't like to leave it to other people, right?
Right.
So
Uh-huh.
my
Uh-huh.
controlling nature, but
You and I are like.
yeah, so my controlling nature, I guess, has protected me thus far in that area at least. So, for those, so it never dawned on me
Yes.
that when you have insurance through your company, it's to protect you,
Term.
and it's a term,
Mm-hmm.
and the term is as long as you're working for that company,
Right. Uh-huh.
and then the insurance goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the way companies are today with laying people off, I was talking to a young lady on Saturday,
Uh-huh.
just last Saturday, and she was making all these great plans, and talking about some second income that she was planning on acquiring, and having this great conversation. She goes into work on Tuesday,
Mhm.
and they hand her a slip saying she's
Oh,
laid off.
wow. Uh-huh.
And she has a child in college, and
Oh,
she has
wow.
one in high school.
Uh-huh.
And what are you going to do with that?
Oh, wow.
And so now, from what you're telling me, not only there are other problems,
Yes.
underlying problems that we wouldn't have thought of,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that her insurances through her company are no longer available,
Yes.
or and then and health insurance, which is another subject that we'll talk about at some point,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not available unless you get the high risk
Mm-hmm.
insurance. So all of these things are coupled with the job,
Right.
and
Mhm.
so you're tying your life and
Mhm.
you're tying your whole life up to a
Mhm.
job that may or may not be there.
Right. Right.
So you could take that same money
Mhm.
and move it into something that you can control,
Yes. Uh-huh.
because your policy is not going to end
Mm-hmm.
the day your job ends if you
Mhm.
control it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
By having
Yes.
your own agent
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
your own premium that you
Right.
decided on,
Mhm.
and so that brings up another question. Oh, girl, I got lots of questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, that brings up another question. Say someone starts out with a policy, and that policy is X dollars,
Okay.
and they get laid off from their job,
Mhm.
and so they're no longer employed at that point, and you're supposed to pay every month.
Right.
What happens? Okay, so the first month is paid. But as you go, what happens?
Okay. So, again, depending on the type of life insurance your company offers,
Right.
supposing you have that term policy
Yes.
and then they lay you off. So, what happens on that one is you're probably given an option by your company, if it's even an option, for you to continue making payments on that policy.
I've worked lots of places. I've never had that
Okay.
option.
If it's not an option, then that means it's just a term policy.
Right.
Now, there are other worksite benefits too, which now I've been offering a lot lately, where it's a voluntary worksite benefit, meaning it's a permanent policy that they're paying on their own. The company's not even doing a subsidy on that.
Okay.
And when they leave that company, that particular policy actually is portable, meaning even if you leave the company, as long as you keep on paying the premiums, that policy is still in force.
Okay.
So there's a worksite voluntary life insurance benefit that a company can offer. So what happens, supposing you just have a term policy or any kind of insurance policy, and you decide not to pay for it. For state of California, you have 60 days
Wow.
to actually pay for that premium.
Okay.
So other states, they only have 30 days.
Okay.
So, for instance, right now, budget is tight. You decide not to pay for it. Of course, you will get
A letter.
a letter, a premium billing stating you have to pay for the policy. Now, supposing something happened to you, you died prematurely within that 60 days. State of California, it's 60 days, so the life insurance company is still obligated to pay the death benefit.
That's great.
Okay, all they have to do is they would just deduct the 2 months of non-payment
Right.
premium from the total benefit.
Okay.
Okay. Now, after 60 days, if you have not paid for that policy, something happens to you on the 61st day, there will be no benefit anymore.
Okay. So, but at least it gives you 60 days
Right.
to figure it out.
Yes. Well, that's the beauty of a permanent policy. Remember the term policy? You just pay and pay until, you decide to, something happens to you and you die prematurely. For a permanent policy, remember there's cash value accumulation there.
That's right.
Yes.
You've got
Yes.
money in the bank. That's what I'm talking
Yes,
about. Let's talk about the money in the bank.
So just like the equity of a home, you cannot pay the payments. There's always options for you.
Right.
Do you want to use a cash value to make your payments until your budget actually becomes better?
That's a great
Right.
benefit.
It's always a benefit. That cash value. I have a lot of clients right now where they thank me because they have cash value in there that now they use to buy a home or help them, with their business or even pay for a child's tuition in school.
That's right.
So different reasons why they're using that cash value. And at the same time, they're leveraging their money with a death benefit. Just
That's
in case
right.
something happens to them prematurely, the family will always get a death benefit.
I like the options.
Yes.
I like the
Yes.
options.
So what kind of benefits? When you say life insurance, when you say a term insurance, for me, that is a death insurance. You have to die in order for your family during that term, in order for your family to get a benefit.
Right.
When it comes to permanent policies, that's a true life insurance because while you're living, you will still get benefits. You don't have to die
Right.
in order for your family to get the benefit.
To get
there
the
are living
benefits.
benefits inside that permanent life insurance.
Exactly. So they should, one's name should be death insurance and one should be life insurance. That would make it simple.
I know. But again, people always think life insurance, oh, you want me to die, that's why I have to buy it. So always,
Right.
all the time, people do not like to talk about death.
No, they don't. It's very uncomfortable. Even thinking about doing this show, I was apprehensive, not because I didn't want the information out there, but because it's a subject that's really hard for people to talk about.
Right.
And after I thought about it, that made me want to do it even more because I said, this is information
Yes.
that people are not talking about that needs to be out there so that they can at least take their time and swallow it in small pieces, So now, as far as talking about life insurance, I just picture this person sitting at the YouTube, listening, like I do, listen for 15 minutes. And then, if I'm doing something, if I'm listening on my phone, I'll take my phone with me to my next location,
Okay.
set it up, listen, again. And that's the beauty of YouTube. You can kind of
Yes.
listen at your leisure. So, that person listening, that now they have some of this knowledge and they need more because this is only the tip. This is
Okay.
just talking about, this is putting a blanket over the blanket of understanding.
Right.
This isn't talking about that person who's sitting on their couch
Yes.
or, whatever they're doing. listening to this YouTube or watching this YouTube,
Uh-huh.
they need an individual policy that
Yes.
may look different or be a combination of what we're talking
Right.
about. So for that person, I urge you to call Cynthia. Just have the conversation. The
Yes.
conversation is free.
Mm-hmm.
It does not hurt to have the conversation. And you're
Right.
going to learn something, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a policy, let her look over your policy to make sure that what you bought is what you have.
Right. Uh-huh.
Especially you guys who click and purchase on the internet.
Yes.
You need to speak to Cynthia to see if what you clicked and purchased is what you meant to get.
Right.
Because I'm not an expert.
Mm-hmm.
I would not think that I should go online to buy something that is this important.
Right.
Because there's no voice at the other end
Mm-hmm.
of that
Mhm.
click and buy,
Right.
no matter what the commercial
Mhm.
says.
It is always, always very important to talk to a professional.
Right.
Life insurance is not a daily conversation.
It really isn't.
Okay, but when you decide to actually get life insurance, highly recommended. Talk to an expert about it. There's so many options about life insurance, and just doing it over the internet, again, it's not doing you justice.
Exactly.
So you don't know what, you may know some of it, what life insurance can do for you, but
Mhm.
the ins and outs of it, the fine print of it, that's
Right.
something that you need to talk to a professional about.
Right. And then you guys who are in your 20s and you're single and you're out of
Yes.
college
Mhm.
and your parents didn't have to help you with your college, tuition. So you say, oh, not me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my 20s. I don't need to worry about that. Who
Okay.
cares? I'm healthy.
Mhm.
Whatever. Let the chips fall where they may.
Yes.
My parents have a policy on me. Whatever,
Right.
the reason. You want to think about it because you're not always going to be young.
Right.
And and if you buy it now, it'll be a lot less expensive
Mhm.
than buying it when you're older
Right.
and may need it.
Yes.
So I
Well, you're
want
bound to need it because
Well,
there's
yeah.
100% chance everyone will die.
this is very true. There's
So
100%
you're
chance.
bound, you're bound to
You
need
will
it.
need it. You
Uh-huh.
will use it.
Yes.
And you should get it while it's less expensive.
Right.
You
Uh-huh.
know. And
Mhm.
so those of you who are in your 20s, the 21 to 29-year-olds who are single and thinking,
Right.
"Oh, I don't need to do that. My parents
Mhm.
take care of that for me."
Mm-hmm.
No, you need to do it because your parents take care of it now,
Mm-hmm.
but not always.
Right. Uh-huh.
And even if they do, once you have a family, that doesn't include your family. That's your
Right.
parents' policy in case something happens
Yes.
to you,
Yes.
right? So everyone at every age needs to have some type of insurance policy.
Right. If you're young,
Mm-hmm.
if you could afford to get coffee, latte, you could actually afford to get life insurance.
You know what?
It's actually cheaper than your latte. If
Yes.
you think about it.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that because we had a conversation the last time you were here
Uh-huh.
and we talked about that. And you were saying how you'll get the kids together and go, look,
Yes.
this is how much it costs. It's
Mhm.
cheaper than getting a latte. Come on.
Yes. I
You
do that
know,
all the time with
Come on.
college
And then they
students.
go, what? Really?
Mhm.
Because if you don't know, you don't know.
Right. Right.
Right? So college students, those
Mhm.
between 21 and 29,
Mhm.
talk to Cynthia, see how much it costs. You're buying coffee.
Yes.
You're buying something.
Mhm.
You're buying lots of things.
Yes.
Insurance needs to be one of them.
Right, right. And it's also a conversation with the young ones. Think about it. When you're young, again, health rating, a
Mhm.
big factor determining
Yes.
the amount of life insurance and the cost of life insurance.
Yes.
When you're young, perfect example, my son, the moment he turned 18, oh, believe me, I bought him a term policy,
Right.
a huge term policy. And there's a reason behind that. And the term policy eventually in the future can be converted to a permanent policy.
Okay.
The beauty about that is that his health rating will be locked.
Ah.
So he could be the best right now. 20 years later, he could start smoking or do some crazy thing. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But the reason why I bought him that is eventually in the future, when he decides to convert that into a permanent policy that I would assume he would pay later on,
Mhm.
his health rating will still be when he was 18 years old.
Okay, so wait a minute.
So
I'm loving this part.
that's the reason why, it's all about setting for the future.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So at 18,
Mhm.
you can buy a term policy.
Now, yes, they can, but some term policies do not allow for conversion options.